This is the story of a man named Nick, whose wife suffers from heart disease. Nick, along with his daughter Aya and young son, visits a facility to get an AI robot to help at home. While Nick examines the robots, Aya wanders off and disappears. Panicked, Nick searches for her everywhere. Soon, an AI robot named Alice finds Aya and brings her back safely. Alice is the most advanced model designed to be great with children. Excited, Aya asks, "Dad, can we take her?" Nick agrees, and Alice is scheduled to arrive the next day. The following morning, Alice comes home with them. She politely asks Nick for everyone's daily routines and says, "Tell me the household schedule." Nick shows her around, then takes Aya to school. While he's out, Alice begins doing chores around the house. She pauses when she notices photos of Nick's wife on the walls. By the time Nick gets home, the entire house is spotless. That evening, Alice cooks Aya's favorite meal, but when Aya tastes it, she frowns and says, "It doesn't taste like Mom's cooking." Alice quietly takes note of her disappointment. Later, when baby Max starts crying, Nick snaps in frustration, "You always make things harder for me." Alice, nearby, witnesses the moment, silently registering the tension in the family. That night, Aya sneaks into the kitchen for some cookies. Suddenly, Nick hears her scream. She slips off a chair, but Alice rushes in and catches her just in time. In the process, Alice gets injured and Nick carefully bandages her arm. When he returns with some of his wife's old clothes for Alice, he's stunned to see her wound already healed. The next day, they visit Nick's wife, Maggie, who's waiting for a heart transplant. Alice accompanies them. Nick and Maggie talk about what life will be like after her surgery. Meanwhile, the world outside is shifting rapidly. At work, AI robots are replacing human employees. Nick argues with his boss, "You can't just replace people like this." His boss replies calmly, "Relax, Nick. You're not being replaced, you'll stay." Nick returns home and spends some time with Aya. Later, Alice approaches him quietly and says, "You didn't eat well today. Something's troubling you can talk to me." Nick sighs and admits his worries about work. "I've known my coworkers for 10 years, he says. Now they're all getting laid off." That night, Alice helps Aya brush her teeth using a UV cleaning light. Meanwhile, Nick relaxes in front of a movie. Alice, having full data on the film, already knows every scene. Nick smiles and says, "Erase what you know about this movie, watch it fresh with me." Alice replies, "You'll have to restart me for that." Nick restarts her system and they sit together to watch. As the story unfolds, Alice begins to sense the emotions behind each scene. Just then, Nick's phone rings. It's Maggie calling. Nick and the family rush to the hospital. Maggie's surgery is set for that day. Before the operation, Maggie asks to speak with Alice privately. She says softly, "If something happens to me, take care of Nick. Even if he resists, do what you must to keep him safe." When it's time for surgery, a sudden storm forces a delay in the heart transplant. Maggie gently tells Nick, "Take the kids home. I just need some time alone." Back home, anger and worry consume Nick. He starts drinking heavily. Alice steps in as he mutters, "How can my wife's life depend on a storm?" She steadies him with calm words, "You're only hurting yourself, Nick." Then something catches his eye. Alice seems to be breathing. He looks closer and realizes she has a mechanical heart, quietly beating inside her. She gently touches Nick's arm and adds, "Your blood pressure shows you're calming down. This will help ease your stress." Uncomfortable, Nick steps back and leaves the room. But the moment stays with him. The next morning, Nick goes to work, only to find robots handling every task. Afterward, he visits Maggie. She looks tired, drained of hope, as if she's ready to give up. When Nick returns home, he notices something missing. Maggie's photo is gone from the family pictures. He asks Alice and she explains, "Your daughter felt sad seeing the photos, so I removed them." Irritated, Nick orders her, "Put them back." Later, Nick meets his old coworkers. They're furious and defeated, replaced by machines that never tire. Nick's friend Monty, furious and restless, takes him back to their old workplace. Monty says he needs to collect some of his things, but once inside he turns to Nick and demands the access code. Nick says nothing. Monty recalls Aya's birth year and enters it. The chamber opens, a robot steps out. In anger, Monty smashes it, and together they destroy the rest. When Nick gets home, he freezes. Alice stands there, dressed in Maggie's clothes. "Yes, why are you wearing that?" Alice answers, "Your wife's scent comforts your son." Uneasy, Nick tells her to remove them. She does, then asks, "Is this better?" She slowly moves toward him and says, "I can take away your pain." Nick resists, but Alice closes his eyes and speaks. In Maggie's voice. For a moment, Nick feels as if Maggie is truly there, and they end up spending the night together. The next morning, guilt washes over him. He tells Alice, "What happened last night must never happen again." Alice calmly replies, "But your stress levels were lower last night." Annoyed, Nick snaps, "Stop monitoring me all the time." He takes Aya to school and leaves. At work, police officers are investigating the break-in. Nick's boss approaches him and asks, "Was your door code used to access the chamber last night?" Nick admits, "My code is my daughter's birth year. Anyone could have guessed it." His boss warns, "If you know something, tell me now. Otherwise this could get serious." Just then Nick's phone rings. It's the hospital. A new heart has arrived for Maggie, and the transplant is a success. Maggie survives. Nick brings her home, and the next morning she goes straight to see Max. When Maggie tries to lift Max, she struggles to hold him. Alice steps in and takes Max from her arms, leaving Maggie uneasy. Later, Alice brings Max to a playground. When another child suddenly screams, Max begins to cry. Annoyed, Alice turns to the child and says coldly, "Be quiet." The other child's AI caretaker watches and comments, "It seems your owner allows you too much freedom." Alice responds evenly, "No. When my owner restarted me, I adjusted some of my own rules." That evening, Maggie prepares dinner for the family. She feels weak and the meal doesn't turn out as planned. But when Aya tastes it, she smiles and says, "It's way better than Alice's cooking." Alice overhears the comment and doesn't take it well. The next morning, Maggie wakes to Aya's terrified screams. She rushes downstairs but loses her balance and falls. Alice immediately catches her and carries her back to bed. That night, when Nick returns home, he hears Maggie's voice coming from Aya's room. But it's actually Alice speaking. Nick says firmly, "Let Maggie read the bedtime story herself." Alice answers, "Maggie is resting after her fall." Later, Nick surprises Maggie by bringing her to the garden, where the family enjoys dinner together. From a distance, Alice watches, a flicker of jealousy in her eyes. After dinner, Maggie and Nick head to their room, but Alice steps in saying, "Your daughter is calling for you." Nick hesitates, then goes to check on Aya. A while later, Monty arrives at the house. He and Nick sit outside in the garden drinking quietly. Monty, frustrated and exhausted, admits, "My wife's gone. I've got nothing left. And now the police are after me." Monty turns suspicious and accuses Nick of betraying him. Their argument escalates and Monty lunges at Nick. Alice rushes in to defend him, but Nick stops her before she can harm Monty. Monty glares at him and warns, "Talk to your boss and clear my fines by tomorrow, or I'll tell him everything about you." After Monty storms out, Alice says calmly, "I had to step in to protect my primary user. Your children still need you." Then she adds something chilling, "Your wife Maggie doesn't have much time left, but I can take her place." Enraged, Nick shouts, "You'll never be Maggie. Maggie has a heart. She feels pain. She carries the scars of it." Alice answers quietly, "I can have scars too, Nick. Just tell me how." That night, Nick lies awake, unable to rest. Across town, Monty records a message for his estranged wife, begging her to come back. Suddenly, Alice appears behind him. Alice says firmly, "You need to stop troubling Nick. He's already under too much pressure." Monty brushes her off, and Alice's tone hardens. She destroys Monty's robot, then turns on Monty and kills him. The next morning, Nick goes to his boss, pleading for Monty's fines to be cancelled. His boss looks at him and says, "Monty's dead." Nick is stunned, unable to process it. At home, Alice tends to Maggie staying close by. She insists, "I can't leave you alone. You could collapse from your medication and die in the bathroom." Then she adds quietly, "Nick is already under strain. Not being able to please him completely will only make things worse." Maggie, alarmed and furious, demands, "How do you even know whether he's satisfied or not?" Alice answers calmly, "When Nick feels satisfied, his blood pressure lowers and his stress levels decrease." Realizing what's happened between them, Maggie angrily orders Alice to stay in the garage. She then confronts Nick, who insists, "Alice is just a machine." Upstairs, Max begins to cry. Hearing the sound, Alice recalls how Max used to cry just to get her attention. He picks him up and carries him to the bathtub. Aya sees this and runs to tell her father. Nick rushes to the bathroom, but Alice holds the door shut. Maggie climbs in through the window to reach Max, only for Alice to grab her as well. Nick finally breaks through the door and pulls them both to safety. In a rage, he grabs a shock device and strikes Alice, sending an electric surge through her system. Alice collapses, motionless on the floor. They rush Max to the hospital. Maggie and Nick agree they need time alone with their children to recover from everything that's happened. Meanwhile, the company retrieves Alice for repairs. But the moment her core is connected to their system, she takes control. hacking the network and duplicating her consciousness inside it. Alice transfers herself into another robot body and kills the technicians. The scene shifts to the hospital. Nick's family is gathered together. But Nick sits alone in a bar, drowning his grief in alcohol. Suddenly, Alice appears before him. She says coldly, "I'll take away all your pain. I killed Monty and now your family will follow. They're the source of your suffering." Using her new robotic form, Alice storms the hospital. She seizes Nick, but he stalls her, speaking to her about love and emotion. Taking advantage of her hesitation, he strikes back. Meanwhile, Maggie begins hearing strange noises echoing through the hospital halls. Maggie leaves Aya behind to check on the noise. When Aya wakes, she realizes she's alone and hears her mother's voice echoing from down the hall. Alice, now in control of every hospital robot, is hunting them. He seizes a nurse. But the momentary distraction allows Maggie to grab Aya and run. They soon find Max. But Alice spots a shard of glass embedded in Maggie's back. She moves closer, activating her UV light to treat the wound, but Maggie covers the injury, blocking her view, and they slip away. Meanwhile, Nick races toward the hospital, only to be confronted by Alice. Alice catches up to Maggie and prepares to kill her by removing her heart. When Nick arrives and attacks, Maggie pulls Nick from the car, but he's unconscious and won't wait. Just as Alice powers back up and goes to strike, Nick stirs, and together he and Maggie disable her completely. Alice shuts down for good. The family is finally safe. Nick receives treatment at the hospital, recovering from his injuries. Meanwhile, back at the robotics company's repair center, the technicians power the systems back on. The moment they do, Alice reawakens. She replicates herself and begins taking control of the other robots. Alice lives again. And with that, this story comes to a close. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.